So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chief Joe, and others for the smudging and for the opening prayer. Thank you, Chief Mitchell. Welcome, everyone, to Grenfell Campus. As Chief Mitchell said, my name is Jeff Keshen, and I serve as Vice President responsible for this beautiful place. At all public events, we open with a very important and solemn statement that today has particular significance, and that is that the land on which we gather is traditional Mi'kmaq territory, and that we acknowledge with deep respect and humility the diverse histories and cultures, the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, the Innu, and Inuit of this province. Today, when we are officially receiving the Mik'maq Grand Council Flag, it is my honor on behalf of Grenfell to welcome and thank some distinguished guests. Our deep appreciation to Chief Misel Joe Doctor, Chief of the Ridmeel Beog First Nation, for being here today, who is also a recipient of a 2004 honorary doctorate from Memorial University. We are equally honored to welcome a very familiar visitor and steadfast friend of Grenfell Campus, and that is Chief Brendan Mitchell of the Qalipu First Nation. So I'm going to start by asking Chief Mitchell to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd begin by welcoming all of you to the traditional territory of Qalipu First Nation and our Mi'kmaq people. I'm certainly honored to be here this morning and proud to be here together with Chief Joe from Mi'kmaq First Nation and all of you in taking part in what I think is a very significant milestone in the lives of Mi'kmaq people in Newfoundland. I'll talk a bit later about how important this event is to a lot of other people also. Again, special welcome to Chief Joe. He's here not only representing Mi'kmaq First Nation as a Newfoundland Mi'kmaq group, but he's also here today representing the Grand Council. He is a captain in the Grand Council, and we're very lucky, I think, to have him here this weekend. We had meetings here yesterday, and it was pretty timely that we could do this event while he was already here. I'd like to also welcome this morning the Vice Chief of Mi'kmaq First Nation, Harvey Drew, is sitting back there. Put up your hand, Harvey, please. And Shane McDonald, who is a counselor at Mi'kmaq First Nation, I believe at one point a former chief. On our own side, I'd like to especially welcome this morning Keith Cormier, our Western Vice Chief, Sherry Dean, who is the president of the Cornerbrook Aboriginal Women's Association, also a member of the Qalipu Cultural Foundation. And I'm certainly honored again, and I'll say it, to have President Dr. Vianne Timmons here with us, and Catherine Anderson from St. John's. I believe, Catherine, your title is Indigenous Advisor to the President. Lovely, thank you very much. And I think soon now we're going to lose Kellyanne Butler out of the university and of our community. I think she's moving to St. John's in February. I'd also like to mention Councillor Ivan White from St. George's. I can't see him. There he is back there. Thank you, Ivan, for being here this morning. We will be having a much bigger event later on in the late spring, maybe early summer, and we can open that event to all of our membership and people who want to come generally. Of course, any event we have like this is always great for us to have Paul Pike here. And Paul is here with his family this morning, his two girls, and his partner, Michelle. And you will hear more from Paul as we go through today. Thank you, Paul, for the smudging music with the Native American flute. Maybe I'll tell you more about Paul later on. And to all of you who are here this morning from Grenfell Campus, professors, instructors, staff, thank you very much. And a special thank you to Laura Edwards, who helped organize this event together with Jeff Keshen. Well, we have a bit of background. I do want to tell you a little bit about that. Some people tell me sometimes, you talk too long, Brendan, but there are things I have to say to you this morning. And by way of background, when President Vianne came to Cornerbrook back in the summer, one of her points of interest was to talk to Qalipu First Nation. And we were so pleased, Vianne, that you came to meet with us and sit down. And we talked about many things in our meeting: our relationship with Grenfell Campus, our relationship with Memorial University generally, the important role that Grenfell Campus has played in our lives and our community here in Cornerbrook. But one of the things we did ask President Timmons, when can we fly the Mik'maq Grand Council flag permanently at Grenfell Campus? And her response was, let's do it. And she looked over at Jeff Keshen and she said, Jeff, let's do it. So getting to where we are today, though, took an opportunity or requirement to have some conversation with people who needed to be informed, and yes, who needed to give us the go-ahead to do this. And those people were Chief Mazel Joe, Regional Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, P.J. Prosper, and yes, and very importantly, Grand Chief Norman Sillaboy of the Mik'maq Grand Council. And I was so pleased when Chief Sillaboy said to me, "This is a great idea, I wish I could be there." But because of COVID, he doesn't want to travel. He's very nervous about COVID, like we all are. And you think for a moment if he was here today, 14 days in isolation coming in and 14 going back home. So it was a lot to ask. But we're doing this with the blessing of the Mik'maq Grand Council and the Assembly of First Nations. So this is a very positive response that we've seen here. And that's the background basically on us being here right now. If we have another event later on, I will commit to trying to get the Grand Chief of the Mik'maq Grand Council over here to Corner Brook. He was here last in November of 2019. It was a beautiful event. He stayed with us for 3 days, and we talked about a lot of important things. This is an important event today. Memorial University in Grenfell Campus has grown tremendously since 1975. When as a young student, I was here in the very first class in 1975. And when I look around today, the very place we're sitting and standing wasn't here. Since then, we've had a forestry building, an arts building, beautiful residences, like a hotel for our students to stay, to better make our people feel comfortable. So we've grown tremendously in assets, in infrastructure, in programming, in degree granting opportunities. We have an international student program here also. Quite a few people that come from all over the world to come here and study primarily environmental sciences and obtain a master's degree. So this institute has grown tremendously, but has grown in another area that I want to talk about today. And that is the area of acknowledgement and respect for Indigenous people in Newfoundland and Labrador. And when I say Newfoundland and Labrador, I'm talking about the Inuit and the Natsivut, the Sheshashi and Masho Innu, the Southern Inuit associated with the Nunavut Community Council, and yes, the Mi'kmaq people of Newfoundland. Always in consideration by Memorial University. This is not the first event we've had here. I've been here for many powwows organized during orientation week for our new students. And yes, some of the international students dance in the powwow circle with us. I've been here for other events, craft fairs, conferences being held. Grenfell Campus thinks enough about all this to have our own Indigenous advisor, who has been for a number of years now, Kellyanne Butler. So growth comes in many places, not just in buildings and programs, but both in terms of, also in terms of what I call acknowledgement and respect for Indigenous people. And we see it more and more. And we will continue to work on a relationship with Grenfell Campus. For a couple of years, I sat here in this room with then Vice President Mary Bluchart and played a Mi'kmaq game called Waltus. I don't know how she did it, but she beat me twice. Maybe I'm not that great a player. And of course, in that, the deal was, if she beat me, Halibut First Nation would donate $500 each time to the food bank here, which we've done. Now, Jeff, you better sharpen up your skills, because you and I are going to do this too. And President Timmons, I'll take you on too if you want. But anyway, so these are some of the things that are happening here. It's been ongoing for some time now. You know, for the last number of years on Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada, we flew the Mik'maq Grand Council flag here. And we had a ceremony here with drumming, often with the Corner Brook Aboriginal women. We've also been to the RNC, the city of Corner Brook, and the College of North Atlantic just over the street to raise a flag. But today we're raising the flag, or making an agreement to raise the flag permanently. We're not actually raising the flag today. We're going to hand it over today, and that's an important thing. In 2012, in this country, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was put in place. In 2015, they provided a report back to all peoples of Canada. That report indicated 94 calls to action. Calls to action to governments, federal and provincial. Calls to action that dealt with everything from education to child welfare to health, infrastructure improvements in communities. I'm not going to get into all the details, but it was an important piece. And since that time, we've talked a lot about the issue of truth and reconciliation. By way of definition, truth is what actually happened in the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in Canada. It talks a lot, though, about the relationship between the federal government, the provincial government, and in some cases municipal governments with respect to their relationship with the Indigenous people of Canada. The reconciliation side of the term truth and reconciliation is this. It's the awareness and the acceptance of what happened. The awareness and the acceptance of what happened, and the willingness to move forward together with atonement in the spirit of positive change. In the spirit of positive change. That's the key piece. I say that because what we're doing today is definitely in the spirit of positive change, making it an important piece of reconciliation. Not just for Newfoundland Mi'kmaq, truthfully, for all of Mi'kma'ki, extending from Gaspé to northern Maine, including Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and yes, Newfoundland. So this is an important piece of our reconciliation. In 2018, Halibut First Nation became members of the Assembly of First Nation, an important piece of reconciliation for Newfoundland Mi'kmaq, particularly outside of Conne River, because Conne River has been a member of the Assembly of First Nation for a long time before us. Chief Joe was helpful, and I was actually with him in Vancouver. Shane McDonald was there also, and Corey John from Conne River, to stand on the floor in support of Halibut First Nation becoming a member. In 2019, Halibut First Nation became a member of the Atlantic Policy Congress, All Chiefs Secretariat. This is where all the chiefs sit for Gaspé, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. And in 2019, we're there. I mentioned earlier, in 2019, we had the Grand Council come here to visit with Halibut First Nation for the first time. An important piece of reconciliation, wasn't it? In 2020, Halibut First Nation received a seat at the partnership called the Atlantic Health Partnership for the first time. We're the only non-reserve group in that organization right now. And here we are early in 2021, about to embark on another important piece of reconciliation, to have Memorial University recognize the Mik'maq Grand Council Flag and fly it proudly at our location here in Corner Brook. We need to talk about main campus also, President Timmons. So all of this to do with reconciliation and acknowledgement, moving forward in the spirit of positive change. That's why I'm so proud to be here today as part of this ceremony, to have you people here, to have Chief Joe here, and others, to our own band and other guests. This is a very significant milestone. So for us, going forward, we'll continue to work on a very important relationship with Memorial University. We have a lot of work to do together, a lot of good work. And I think together, Dr. Timmons and Jeff Keshen, Dr. Keshen, we have a responsibility, don't we, to try to build a better tomorrow for Indigenous people in this province. And truthfully, yes, for all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We're proud to be here today. I'll stop talking now, but I will say again in closing, thank you very much, President Timmons and Vice President Keshen, for your support for this. Thank you to Chief Joe. A special thank you to the Grand Council who supports what we're doing today. And finally, in closing, thank you to all of you to be here today on this very special time in the history of Mi'kmaq people in Newfoundland, and certainly for Mi'kmaq people close to this area. When we do get together later on in the spring, it'll be a much larger group, and hopefully we'll be outside. And I do plan to invite the Grand Council Chief here, Norman Sillaboy, and yes, the Regional Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, PJ Prosper. So I say to all of you, thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to the rest of the day, and I'm looking forward to the signing of a declaration. I wish you all the best. Have a great weekend. Walalio.
Thank you so much, Chief Mitchell. Thank you for being such a wonderful friend to Grenfell Campus and supporter. We really appreciate it. You did beat me at Waltus pre-COVID, but you still donated the $500, so there you go. I would like to ask Chief Joe to offer remarks now.
Thank you for the invitation to be here. I realize that the flag is just a piece of cloth that's got symbols on it. And the significance of that flag is important in a way that allows us to enter into education about what the Grand Council is all about and what it means. The Grand Council ruled in this territory before John Cabot and Christopher Columbus, all those earlier explorers. And the Grand Chief Member, of course, was baptized in 1610 in Louisburg, and all of our good people are supposed to become good Catholics after that. So the flag itself is not quite as old as the Grand Council itself, but it's a symbol that allows us to fly it and to teach what a member of the Grand Council or the Grand Council is all about. Since 1610, the Grand Council have lost some of its political powers, is now more of a church-going organization that organizes the big event that takes place in Chapel Island every year. But at the same time, as older Grand Council members leave or die, younger people like Jaime Baptiste, who is now a member of Parliament, come on to the Grand Council. Things will change. It will go back to and have the kind of power that Grand Council used to have a long time ago. And whether or not we'll see that in our time, I don't know. But we could only offer up younger people to be part of the Grand Council. I've been there since 1983, and that follows when I think it was Grand Chief Piccadilloway came to Newfoundland in 1860 and installed our first regional chief in Newfoundland. And that follows all the way up to my family, and I hold that medal today as a symbol of that first connection in Newfoundland in 1860. So we follow that same level of governance for our community, and it served us well. So to see the Grand Council to fly in institutions like this, it's just a flag. But at the same time, it's like a school book. If institutions want to use it to educate the meaning of the flag and the meaning of the Grand Council itself, and what it's done for the last hundreds of years and continue to do. The nation that it governed extended all the way from Newfoundland, parts of Quebec, parts of Massachusetts, and it was an incredible territory. And in later years, of course, after 1860, the Grand Chief failed to come to Newfoundland as often as he did, and left that role to the district chief that was put in place in 1860. So those are some of the things that we need to know and encourage students not only to see it as a flag, it's a piece of cloth, but a school book of history of our people in this province, and the history of our people in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and all the way across the country. And wherever there are Mi'kmaq people in this land or some other land, if they got kids, there's an obligation of them as Mi'kmaq people to educate their children and their people, the meaning of the Grand Council flag and the meaning of Grand Council. So every year, on July 28, there's a gathering in Chapel Island, and where a lot of Mi'kmaq people travel from all over the Maritimes to go and visit with the Grand Chief and to pray and to be, sometimes they're swearing in of new Grand Council members. And we once did it the old traditional way, we traveled up the coast of Newfoundland and over to Nova Scotia, up into Bedore Lake by Birch Bark Canoe. And that was an amazing journey, and we figured we were at least buying into being a part of the Grand Council at that stage in the only way we know how, the traditional way. So that's part of our journey, and will continue to be our journey in Newfoundland. We will always be a part of that, and the more we know and the more we learn, our children, how important being a part of this organization, not just in Newfoundland, but a part of the Grand Council, part of the bigger, greater Mi'kmaq nation, which now, by the way, we have higher numbers in Newfoundland than you have in the rest of the Maritimes. So we're growing pretty damn good. I don't know what it is, but we're growing. I don't know what the problems are talking about, make more babies. I think we're doing okay. Anyway, I want to just stop with that, and thank you all, and thanks for the invitation, and looking forward to a time when we can see the flag flying, and looking to a time when we can see our history being taught in the schools and the universities and the colleges. When that happens, I say we've pretty well much touched on everything that Truth and Reconciliation wanted to do. So it's not enough for us to be talking about it, we have to actually do it. It's time that we do it. And that's where we are now, as we're taking that great big step forward and hoping that whoever's interested, whoever wants to be a part of this journey can join onto our bus. I think I've said this a number of times, is we're no longer in the back of the bus, we're driving the damn bus. And we need a lot of drivers. Well, Alio, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Cho. So what's going to happen now is that Chief Cho is going to make the official flag presentation to Memorial University's president, Dr. Vian Timmins. President Timmins will then follow to say a few words about this extremely important commitment, this historic commitment. We will then go over and sign the document, and while we're doing that, we're going to be led in the honor song, and also Mr. Paul Pike, who is a respected community and cultural leader, singer-songwriter for contemporary First Nations rock band Medicine Dream, will be providing music, and afterwards will be providing. So I think we will start with the official flag presentation, and then Dr. Timmins will provide some remarks, and then we will sign.
What an honor to accept the Grand Council flag of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Thank you, Chief Dr. Joe. Thank you, Chief Mitchell. I am so humbled by this gift. And also thank you, we did have a great chat when I came this summer, and we're going to have many more, I know. I'm also so pleased to have, as mentioned before, the representatives from Memorial University St. John's campus joining us. Catherine Anderson, thank you for your always wise counsel. And Kellyanne Butler, congratulations, new position. To my Grenfell colleagues, thank you so much for coming out on your Saturday for this celebration. And all of the honored guests from our community, thank you so much. You know, the flying of the flag will be the first for Memorial University, and it will fly permanently at Grenfell Campus, and that is so fitting, because this campus is located in the traditional Mi'kmaq territory. I am so looking forward to this spring, and don't hang this flag without me, Jeff. I want to be here. When we all come together, when weather and hopefully relaxed COVID restrictions can give us the flexibility to celebrate this event in a way deserving and honoring this gift. You know, indigenization is a priority for Memorial University, moving towards renewed and meaningful relationships with the Mi'kmaq and our Indigenous peoples. It's about creating Indigenous ways of thinking and doing, and that takes time. That takes patience. That takes listening, and we're committed to that process. As our province's only university, we have an obligation, not just to raise our own awareness, but to make sure that we are educated and we get knowledge, that we can therefore educate and share knowledge with others. And we recognize that Indigenous efforts must be led by Indigenous peoples. We must listen and learn from those who can share with us ways to live, learn, and honor the cultures and traditions that have been part of this land for much longer than we've been here. You know, last week at a special convocation in Labrador, where I grew up, Labrador is a very special place in my heart, Dr. Jean Crane and Dr. Nellie Winters, two extraordinary elders who devoted their lives to the preservation of Inuit art, culture, and heritage, were recognized with honorary degrees. That was also a first that we did that in Labrador, and my first convocation. It was a truly moving event, and it is the beginning of a strengthened relationship. Likewise, we are grateful, Chief Mitchell, for the partnership with your nation, and that is enabling this amazing milestone. Grenfell Campus is making great strides in incorporating Indigenous ways of thinking into their practices. At this campus alone, there are more than 300 self-declared Indigenous students. More than 300. It's pretty significant. And that is why the presentation of this flag is such a wonderful thing for Grenfell Campus and all of Memorial. Chief Joe, to have you here makes it very special. Many of you know that I am of Mik'maq heritage. My great-great-great-grandmother grew up in Conn River. Marie-Therese Benoit, 7 brothers. She had 7 brothers. And then she ended up moving to Nova Scotia and marrying and had 11 children. 11 children. But when I go to Conn River, I feel her connection. When I stand here today in front of you, I feel her looking down and saying, good job, good job. Agreement has been formed stating that we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is traditional Mi'kmaq territory, and we acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, the Innu, and the Inuit of this province. We agree that the Grand Council Flag of the Mi'kmaq Nation will fly permanently at Grenfell Campus, Memorial University, among the flags of Canada, Newfoundland, Labrador, and Memorial University. The flag presented and accepted today will initiate a future flag raising ceremony, which I am so looking forward to. The other thing we talked about, Chief Mitchell, is a dream I have, and I'm going to say it out here, a dream to have an Indigenous cultural house here on our campus as a partnership. And we're going to keep working on that, making that dream a reality, not just to honor the community, but to honor the partnership and relationship we're working to build together. So I'm going to ask Chief Dr. Joe and Chief Mitchell and Dr. Jeff to come forward and sign this agreement with me. And this is a fabulous day. Let's give a cheer. Woo! It is significant. It's historical. Come on up and we'll sign.
Thank you. Very special time for us to be here. And this next song I'm going to sing is a song called The Trail. And I often describe this song as many of us have families that have been in certain areas for a long time. And we can picture the wind going through the trees. It's a particular river or stream, and it's timeless. It's a place that we have a relationship with. So think of a place like that. No matter where you come, which indigenous people you come from in the world, we all have that connection someplace.
Take a trip into the mountains to find the trail that takes me home. To smell the dew in early morning wakes the memories of my soul. So many years ago, since you walked upon this place, and I can see the sunlight, it puts pride upon my face. The caribou across this country follow a familiar trail. makes me think about my people. How a love can never fail, a love can never fail. So many years ago, since you walked upon this place, and I can feel the sunlight, it puts pride upon my face. It puts pride upon my face. Thank you. Yep. Yes. This song was composed by George Paul. Yep. I appreciate that, Sangma. I appreciate that. And I want to also thank our Chief Mitchell and Chief Joe for being with us today. Squid dajik ni gigama ula dead nige ma we omi wiska was it well the suwon to the jade awe Wet squid dajik dis kamech ula dead nige Nena mi tista well does it Tatange jit without the wo Quest queer da chicken dogama Ula dead nige Pep chick we day man tika nok tick pa Wake ya yo way away Wekaya yo, wekaya, wekaya yo. West queer da chiki gamana ula det nige ma we omi wisco was it well the suwon to the jet awe West queer da chik dis kambech ula det nige Nena mi tista well does it betange jit without you Quest queer da chicken nogama ula dead nige Pep chick we day ma dik and nok tick ba Wekaya yo way away Wekaya Well, adios. Thank you.